Welcome to the What I Meant to Say podcast. I'm your host, Wendy Jones, founder of Be Better Media and a mom of four, passionate about human connection. Some of these stories contain sensitive content about real life events, and all of the information in this podcast and from anywhere on the Be Better Media website is for informational purposes only. If you find that you need help, which we all do from time to time, please reach out to a licensed professional for help. This week I sat down with Justin Ternes, who is so much more than a doctor of physical therapy, because his work lives at the intersection of mind, body, and spirit. As a breathwork and performance coach, Justin mentors men's groups to live a truly authentic life. I am so excited to welcome you to What I Meant to Say. Today I've got Justin Ternes. He is the owner of True Self Health and a Encinitas-based physiotherapist and breathwork specialist and mindset and performance coach. So you are at the intersection of so many things that I am so fascinated by. So I am really excited to have you here today and capture your story. So
thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be on.
Awesome. So let's dive right into it and let me know, what brought you to California and your interest in physical therapy.
Absolutely. So I'm born and raised Fayetteville, Arkansas, which is Northwest Arkansas, little college town, home of the Razorbacks. And it's tucked away in the Ozark Mountains. So it's interestingly different than you would expect an Arkansas town to be. Fayetteville being a college town, there's a lot of cultural diversity. And so I grew up, so my accent is not as thick as some other people in the South that you may interact with, but from Arkansas, born and raised, and went to the University of Arkansas with the idea of going pre-med. A lot of medical doctors in my family. My father was a psychiatrist, uncles, ER, radiologist, oncologist. And so I was like, okay, cool. That's my direction. That's my path. So I went to college with the pre-med route in mind. And then along that journey, I think I was going pre-med for the wrong reason. And I could feel that internally, but had no self-awareness, wherewithal to make that distinction enough to make a shift in my path. But thankfully, the universe shifted my path for me. I had an internship course where I was planning on going to the local hospital and doing a semester-long internship. And somehow that fell through. And my advisor suggested that instead of going to the hospital, just because all I needed was the course, all I needed were some hours, there's a local physical therapy place, go there for the semester. And I was like, well, I don't really know what physical therapy is. I don't really want to do that. So I was anti that idea, but they're like, all you need are the hours, and plus it'll be like a cool environment. And they're like, plus we know you and you're like athletic focused and sports oriented. So I think you'll enjoy it. So I went to my internship with a little bit of despair. And then as soon as I really got into the space and understood the art of physical therapy and the patient-centered care that took place, the problem solving, the movement, the holistic approach that was available, it just clicked. And I was like, oh, no, this is exactly what I want to do. It's exactly what I want to do, because the idea of going pre-med was actually pushing me into a profession where I saw most patient professional interactions average around 5 minutes, 3 minutes, 7 minutes per session. And I knew that was funky for me personally, and I knew I didn't fully align with it. So as soon as I saw the inner makings of a physical therapy clinic, I was sold, I was set, communicated that with my advisor, and she's like, cool, easy switch. You've already got all the prereqs. Let's apply to PT school instead of med school. I was like, awesome, I am in. And the rest is history. So yes.
I have so much respect for physical therapists, having been someone who's had quite a few surgeries. I've got a bad ankle, and as much respect as I have for the surgeons who have helped me when my ankle's been really bad, it's nothing without a good physical therapist. So Absolutely. You can do as much damage with the surgery, if you don't have a good physical therapist, you can come out worse than you went in.
Oh
So
no, it's
I have,
imperative. It is, and I was looking at the profession from a lens of maybe like, oh, PT is lesser or lower or not as important as the surgeons, and then understanding that like surgeons who are of the highest quality have the highest regard for their nursing, for their PT, for their OT, for their whole team. And so I quickly was able to shift my own perspective around that and really see the impact of PT. So I jumped fully in. And then I made my way to San Diego. So I went to physical therapy school in New Hampshire outside of Boston, Franklin Pierce University. And then from there came to San Diego. I just had this really strong pull to the West Coast, knowing that there was this like innovative line of thinking and practicing of physical therapy as a practice in itself, but also this holistic approach. But little did I know what I was going to get myself into over the last 5 years. So excited to drop into that.
yeah. So is that where we both have a mutual respect for the work of Brian McKenzie at Shift Adapt, and they train athletes and veterans and really anybody that's looking to level up and understand how their physiology and biology becomes their psychology, and trickles into relationships and health and everything, that the way that we live our lives. Did you become exposed to Brian's work when you got to California, or was it before that?
No, it was once I got to California, I was exposed to Brian's work. I was actually exposed to Wim Hof breathing first. And I was exposed to Wim Hof breathing while I was in New Hampshire, surprisingly, through a podcast. And I just jumped full in to ice cold water, literally and figuratively, started doing breath practices. And this is like 2016. And I was a lone wolf. I was telling all my friends about how great it was, and no one else was like jumping in the breath or the ice with me. And I was like, y'all are off, because this is so powerful and potent. And so I shared it with a lot of friends, and they would do like a one-time ice bath experience with me. But I was like, this is something that's so powerful for me in my life. So I brought that personal practice to San Diego, California. And then all of a sudden I recognized there are a lot of Wim Hof breathers out here, a lot of human health and performance optimizers out here. And in that journey, came across Brian McKenzie's work and was deeply fascinated and intrigued by the way that he was talking about mind, body, nervous system, nature. And so, yeah, that's kind of the line of direction. But BMAC exposure was totally put on the front page for me here in California.
Yeah, the first time I heard him talk was at a XPT event, the ones that Laird Hamilton and Gabby Reese put on, and he stole the show for me. I was blown away by his insight and also his just really approachable way of how he delivers it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, he's been a game changer, as well as Emily, who's working there at Shift Adapt too with her skill of stress course. It's incredible. But
it's amazing. Well, I'll add with Brian McKenzie on the. I was thinking about this morning. Shout out to Brian McKenzie. But this morning I was like, I was teaching a friend some of the breath techniques that I provide and I teach, and I really free flow and combine a lot of different breath practices just to challenge and engage my nervous system. And he's picking my brain, and essentially I respoke some words that I got from Brian McKenzie a few years ago in our mentorship together. And it's essentially, methods are many and principles are few. So the techniques of breath work, there are so many ways to move and breathe and use your breath to navigate life, performance, stress, anxiety. And there's so many techniques that are out there, but really the techniques and the style of breathing and how you use your breath is infinite, because there are an infinite number of ways to breathe and combining different breath techniques together. But the principles are what are really important and what should be focused upon. And in working with Brian, he's just like, screw all the methods, get into the print, like, why are the methods important? And what are the commonalities between all the methods? And so that was probably one of the biggest teachings that I've had in my breath journey, but also in my professional journey, which is, yes, there are different techniques that are beneficial, but underneath all of the techniques and modalities, there is this common theme with breath. It's nervous system engagement, it's lung capacity building, it's cardiovascular health, it's self-awareness, it's introspection, it's introspection. Um, it is a variety of these principles that you can focus and base your teachings on. And so just creating a little bridge between introduction to Brian McKenzie and how he spoke, it's just the principle based practices for me have opened up so many opportunities that go into breath work, go into physical therapy, go into pain and performance coaching. And so, yeah, highly energized and excited just even talking and thinking about that.
Yeah, I love what you brought in there, because I definitely, as I've learned more and more about breath work, it's that ability to let go of perfection and method is so key. And so I love how you put that, because my work has, my self-awareness is deepened so much when I realized that I didn't need to do something a certain way, or maybe one technique that worked on one day that wasn't what I needed the next day. And learning, just diving deep into your nervous system and letting that breath inform you.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very calming process when you let it in. But if you're a perfectionist in any way, which so many of us is, or athletes, we're very used to timing and technique, it's really a way to just create such a deeper pathway to understanding yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously the performance that can flow from there is just groundbreaking. It's amazing.
It's powerful. And I frequently think about how I think about my sports athletic background. I played basketball, baseball, football growing up through high school. And um, I think about the difference between block training and random training. So using block training to get your shot down, be consistent, feel the subtle intricacies of that movement, and then go into a different block training movement, get another layer in, and then combine the two and kind of go game speed, play like game level speed, and combine and mix and match. And um, I love methods and having techniques of breath because it trains the nervous system, it trains your body, it trains your breathwork capacity to get good at those techniques, only to build you and separate from the dependence on those techniques and integration into life, into performance, and into what you really need to do. So I actually I love Wim Hof method. I love holotropic. I love all of the methods, but I also see people get lost in the methods and really dedicated to the methods in such a way that they never break free from the method. And in that, they're not really experiencing breath on a level that could be available and then will be transferable to life in a more powerful way, or a more real way. And so get into all of the breath practices or trainings that you really enjoy and speak to your body and your heart, and have the zoom out perspective enough to say, okay, once I get it, let me put myself into a new scenario. Now let me use that and move it. Same thing in physical therapy. I got so tired of hearing, okay, do your exercises 3 times a day. All right, five reps, 5 sets, 3 sets of 10, 3 times a day. And it's like, that's so great. But I would see people and they would do that. But the time in between the sets, the time in between the moments where they were doing their exercises, they weren't aware of themselves. They weren't aware of their injuries. Their injuries were getting better, but not, it's almost like get better, stop, get better, stop, rather than having this like active fluid self-awareness, interaction, curiosity. I'm injured, so I am currently in a state of being an injured human, and this is part of my life experience. So I'm now going to be this individual that is injured and actively healing to get to the point of where I'm no longer in that space. And that's a mindset that you can shift in injury. So I'll
Yeah.
pause there. Yes.
Yeah. Well, you're reminding me of another point that we really connected on from the first time we talked, which was an amazing podcast, my favorite, Finding Mastery, and the one on the psychology of pain with Dr. Julie Zoffness. And she talked a lot on that podcast about the biopsychosocial model of pain. And then when you and I connected, you said you had some experience meeting Julie, and that you base a lot of your work on that model. So tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah. Dr. Zoffness is a good friend and a colleague. I'm very fortunate to have known her before she's become so popular and blown up, but for good reason, because she's extremely passionate about the science of pain, the experience that so many individuals have with pain that vary greatly. And so she's a wonderful advocate for those who have chronic and persistent pain. And for me, I take so much of what I use on a day-to-day basis with clients and integrate it, even if I'm working with someone who is going through acute pain. The principles of biopsychosocial, that's the model of pain science methodology where we see and understand that pain is an experience of the human body, the being, that is not solely physical, but also includes psychological components and social components. So it's biopsychosocial, but for me, it's biopsychosocial, emotional, spiritual, life, like expanding. So the framework of biopsychosocial is powerful because it adds this perspective that's rooted in evidence-based science, that pain sensation in our body is filtered through our brain, the neocortex, the part of our brain that will react to a difficult conversation or is engaged with a problem to be solved. The what sits in front of you is being filtered through the brain, which has a lifelong of experiences and variables that contribute to how you see the external world. So it's not just pain. Like I was saying, I work with a lot of, I do men's coaching, men's groups. So I hold space for men to go through the pain of their hearts, pain of their emotions, and there's a physical component to it. You feel grief, you feel guilt. The body will also feel that pain. And so as the body feels that pain, you will also register that physical sensation and tie it in with the emotional sensation. And having the capacity, awareness, and education to communicate with someone who's suffering from pain and being able to say, hey, like, one, I hear you, I see you, I feel you. And also, what is contributing to this pain right now? Just know that there are so many facets contributing to this experience. It's not just a one thing, one stimulus type experience. That really opens up a lot of healing opportunity for people. So big fan of pain science. That's actually where I went from being a physical therapist with the idea of being a orthopedic, athletic, return to sport, PT. I love that. That's where I wanted to go. But I started using some of my breathwork techniques and stress reduction techniques, mindfulness-based stress reduction, John Kabat-Zinn stuff. I started using that meditation with my patients who seem to be stressed and also seem to be not having a very positive healing injury rehab experience. And so I was like, hey, let's breathe. Hey, let's slow down. Let's calm your body. Like, how can you have a good shoulder rehab process when you're so tight all the time because you're stressed all the time? So I started to introduce these breathwork practices. And as I started introducing the breathwork practices, pain science came on the radar. And as I started learning about pain science, that fit in beautifully with the emotional men's group work I was doing. And then now all of a sudden it's just like all of these little factors placed such a huge part in each experience of pain, suffering, physical or emotional. So as you can tell, I'm a huge nerd on this. I love it. I love speaking on it. So like keep it coming. Let's go.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm really interested to hear you talk about your men's groups. And I think that's a fascinating place to be working these days, because I do feel like there's a paradigm shift in the way that we're learning how to be more vulnerable, but that's especially among the male population has historically not been something that's encouraged, right? It's been, put on your brave face, you're tough enough, you get through things. What are some of the, both principles and methods that you use within those groups to help men process life? I mean,
Oh, goodness. That's a great question. Okay. So, many elements, principles. I feel like to best answer this question, I want to back up and talk about one, getting into physical therapy, having an idea of what I wanted to do, being in the space of like physical hands-on. I once had a dream of being a sports psychologist, and my respect for Michael Gervais is as great as yours, I'm sure. Um, I don't know though. You seem to be quite the
he was my introduction into the podcast world, and I will say, in the space of the last 6 years where I really didn't have a mentor, the things that I have learned from that podcast and through that Facebook group and the contacts they've made, really, they've been just invaluable. So yeah, my
yeah.
respect for the space he's provided for people to learn is just, I can't say enough. So you're right.
Beautiful, beautiful. I will get to the answer of the questions of the
Yeah.
principles of men's groups, but a little like segue transition that will pull me right into the conversation of men's group is idea that I wanted to be a sports psychologist kind of floated around. My dad was a psychiatrist. And so I was like, okay, here's this connection. But my life took me towards more of the medical and then into physical therapy. And then I'm working with patients on their body. But then I'm recognizing that working with patients with their mind is as important. And so all of a sudden I'm doing physical therapy, but then in my head, I'm like, I feel like I'm a psychologist, but with weights and kettlebells and stretching and manual therapy. I'm like, okay, so I'm actually kind of doing what I wanted to do in the first place, which is psychology. Um, and it was a beautiful convergence of these like realizations, but it going another layer deeper into me. I lost my father at 6 years old to a car accident. And so I always had the idea that I wanted to like do what he did. But I think I also like kind of pushed away like who he was and what he did. And I was like, I'm gonna go on my own journey, in which I did. I went fully on my own journey. But then fast forward 20 years later, when I'm 26, 27, I'm going on my path, but I'm starting to like recognize the power of working with people and their mind and their mindset and psychology. And I'm loving it. And I'm having great patient response and interaction. And then into my um, into my realm comes a men's group in the local community. I was like, I want to do that. I don't know why I'm drawn to it, but I'm very much drawn to it. So I go into a men's group and just start participating in a weekly men's group, and it all just clicks. And I'm like, oh, I know exactly why I'm here, because I lost this connection with my father at such a young age. And then it's like, holy shit, I always wanted to walk in his footsteps, but I didn't really see it as possible. I didn't see it as my path. But here I am walking in his footsteps. I'm facilitating. So I went from participating in men's groups. I was so deeply involved. It really resonated deeply with how I teach and facilitate, that it was an easy transition from participant into leader of groups. And so I started building in my area. But it was a beautiful coming full circle of my story and realizing I am doing exactly what I always wanted to do as a kid. Now as an adult, I'm in it, and it just happened. I didn't push, I didn't force. I just followed the flow of my life. And so that was so fucking powerful for me.
Yeah.
So I'll breathe with that.
That is, in a nutshell, one of the coolest stories I've ever heard.
It's just,
Because it's layered with so many principles that I have learned now in probably the last 6 to 10 years, that my life's goal is just to help other people learn these things younger than I did. And we all have our path, and I don't I don't look back with regret, but it's like, once you know something, and that concept you hit on of just flow not force is so huge, and then being on the cutting edge of neuro PT and biology becoming psychology, and all of these things that are so true to our existence, they're just scratching the surface on this stuff. Because when I had my first ankle surgery at 20, I literally walked out and they were like, I was 20, but they said, "Oh, we don't do PT for ankles. You just walk it off."
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
To see where we've come. Sadly, I've had, I think, 3 more, I've had 3 surgeries on the same foot, but where we've come in physical therapy, which was what you described, do these exercises, do another set, to neuro PT. How is your brain responding to that injury in your body? What is your mind telling you that you can or can't do? And the places that takes us.
Yeah.
I mean, and yeah.
Yeah.
What a beautiful way.
I 100% agree. And we have such a far way to go, because the accessibility for that type of physical therapy is very low, because the number of physical therapists that know about that type of teachings is very low. Just like Dr. Zoffness said in that podcast, is the amount of medical doctors, psychologists, physical therapists that do not receive courses on pain or education on pain, or education on the influence of stress, anxiety, emotions, social status on pain, is lacking in such a way that how can someone receive that type of treatment? It's like, we're guiding individuals going through these really tough emotional, physical times, but we're disregarding the emotions that are present. So here's where I'll link it into men's group, but men's group gave me a space where I was in the enclosed. So talking about principles of men's group is, you are in a space for a set period of time that is enclosed, it's confidential, it's men amongst men, dropping in, speaking from the heart. So it's this safe environment to be yourself fully. And in order to be yourself fully, you must feel and express the emotions that are a part of you so deeply. Where there is no human in the world that is void of emotions. There may be individuals who are disconnected from their emotions, but that doesn't mean that you don't have emotions. That just means that you're not connecting to the emotions that exist in your body, in yourself fully. So men's group gave me this permission to cry, in front of people. I'm a crier naturally. So I know a lot of dudes who go in men's group and they don't cry at all. And so that's not a principle. Principle of men's group is not you go in there and cry. Principle of men's group is you create a space for men to feel. And if the feeling that you experience elicits crying, if it elicits shaking your hands with anger, if it elicits fucking yelling "fuck you" really loud, whatever is alive in your body, that is what the safe container is meant to hold. So as I got into it and more connected with how my emotions move through my body, and one, I'm not in charge of my emotions. I don't dictate what I feel. I dictate how I feel what I'm feeling. I can either, I'm going to feel an emotion. Like right now, I'm feeling excited. I'm feeling adrenaline pumping. We do a lot of check-ins. So here's an example of a self check-in. I call it environment, embodiment, energy. So environment, sitting in my home, catching some good light. cueing and pulling in information. I feel comfortable and safe in my space, in body. I'm sitting up tall. I'm on the edge of my seat. I feel my heart beating fast. My hands feel clammy and tight. Um, and then energetically, emotionally, feeling calm, feeling passionate, feeling excitement, feeling this low level hanging cloud layer of sadness. Um, and that's what's available to me right now. That's what I am feeling right now. I didn't create any of those feelings. I just tapped into my body. The check-in process has been maybe one of my biggest takeaways of men's groups, and now I integrate that in my client sessions. So I work with individuals with their pain, and having done work and been safe and comfortable to hold emotions, the number of people who are facing really tough physical ailments and injuries and rehab processes is just uh, there's a lot of individuals facing those difficulties in their process. And something about the way that I hold space and combine opportunity to feel what you're feeling and hey, like, let's get into work, opens the doors for sadness, anger, frustration, loneliness, fear to all come through. But I need it to come through as I'm working with someone so they can clear that. So then we can say, okay, maybe that's 10 minutes of just talking about what's going on in their physical, emotional world. And they feel upset, angry at the surgeon that said, hey, you shouldn't have any physical therapy. Maybe that's like deeper anger, rage towards that person. Maybe after that, there's this like sadness or a wave of grief that comes through, and it's like, fuck, I missed out on 10 months because I wasn't doing like, so I hold that space. My patients have the safety using those principles of men's group to feel what they're feeling. We honor that feeling. And then we say, okay, let's get to work. Let's move. Let's get now let's integrate that into the body. Now let's build yourself. Now let's build yourself physically, emotionally. Beautiful. Notice a new like freshness and lightness that's available. Great. That's where our body is capable of healing and having a more positive experience with these exercises, a more positive experience with these um, breathwork practices. So it's been a beautiful learning experience for me to just see how everything's lined up. And again, it's flow versus forcing. I'm just flowing, and this is what's coming up and out. So
yeah. Hey, I hope you're enjoying this chat as much as I am. For more great content, courses, and lifestyle, go to bebettermedia.tv. That's beautiful. And that concept of being able to just create that space where it's been my experience when we share something that maybe we're really afraid to share. And I used to think like people would say, oh, how could you? Or I can't believe that happened. You create that space where other people go, usually, oh, me too. I've been there.
mm-hmm.
Here's how that relates, or here's what I see. But yeah, that is just that experience. And I can see how it would translate well into your practice as well. So not just with men, but with people who are, having pain in their body, and then just going back to that biopsychosocial model of really being able to tap in and take in the environment and everything that we, as athletes, we can be so body centered, and oftentimes you can talk,
Mm-hmm.
but just talking doesn't make it go anywhere, right?
Well, there's the rise of like the mind body practices, somatic healing. Everyone's talking about breath work. Breath work is a combination of mind and body. It's using our own volitional involvement with our breathing in a way that influences our psychology. because our biology influences our psychology. So we are using our breath to influence our biology, to influence our psychology. And it's becoming very common. There's a huge need for mental health
Yeah.
practices now more than ever. And we are learning that it doesn't, we are learning that there are more ways to navigate mental health than solely through talk therapy and medication, which is a good combination in the right time, in the right place, with the right person. But breath awareness, breath practices, mindfulness, community based gatherings, conversations, exercise, sleep, importance, health, wellness, those are important to everyone. We can all use a little bit more attention and understanding of those things. And so I'm grateful that I'm in a place where I get to provide a holistic approach of supporting people, mind, body, spirit, physical, etc. So, yeah.
So for somebody who doesn't really, who hasn't really had much experience in the breathwork area, or that sensation of tapping into their nervous system, can you explain how that awareness, tapping into that awareness, plays out in all those different areas in our life? I mean, from relationships to our success at work, because all of that can be such a physical and the concept of success, but there are so many people out there that maybe they've risen to the highest levels of success in their business, but they're still feeling empty.
Mm,
And that concept of, and I've talked with other performance coaches that, there's that concept out there that, like, you get to where you're going and it's not all that it cracked up to be.
yeah.
And that innate knowing of yourself, like how do the things that you do help people really realize sustainable high performance?
Yeah, that's a beautiful question. And what comes to mind for me is that when we do breath practices or awareness practices or mindfulness practices, for me, breath work, if done in a certain way, is a mindfulness practice. It is a presence practice. It's an opportunity to get clear with you and you only in the moment. It's an opportunity to tune in with your nervous system in such a way that whenever you look at when you look out the window, you see everything that's out the window instead of looking out the window and seeing like different fantasies in your head or different things going on in your head or where you should be or what. So I think naturally in improving our capacity to get present into the very specific moment that is right now helps the long term over time understanding of who we are. And often those who go on their path to get to that place where they think they want to go, to get to the top of the mountain where they think they wanted to get, they get there and then they look around, they think that, oh, they're like, this isn't what I thought it would be. Well, it's because they thought it would be something and they were doing something to become something that's not who they really were. They were just going on this path and direction that they chose or their parents chose or this story that they heard chose. And it's almost like a separation of self versus a connection to self. And so breath work in itself is not a one time fix it type thing. That's why I breathe every day. I create time every day to breathe, but with the intention of getting very centered in myself, in my moment, to create neuroplasticity, neurogenesis in the parts of my brain that are more keen and light up more when I do connect with present moment, when I do connect with that part of me that is me. And so there's this like daily practice integration that builds up over time, but as it builds up you're actually getting closer to the you of who you are. And then you get into a new relationship or a new job, and then basically all the work you just did you can rip up and throw out the window because now you got a new identity and a new connection, and then all your practices drop off. And then there's this other reminder, okay, cool, well, who is this for? Like, what do I need to do for myself right now? So breath work in my mind is one of the best practices to do for yourself because it is one of the only practices that you can do for you and only for you. And so that's how I would discuss that question, because it's like, to get to that place where you think you want to go, if you really get there and you feel fully fulfilled, then you were on the right path. If you get there and you weren't fully fulfilled, then you were probably chasing some other things. And so you were distant from your heart. And so I use a lot of breath practices to connect to my heart and who I am.
Yeah, that heart mind connection is a very, to me, that is the key to sustainable high performance. Like, I love that, exploring that connection between spirituality and science is just, that's another thing I feel like is on the real forefront right now. It's, people are starting to talk about a lot more, and I find so much hope in that intersection for the world and for people and relationships, and the way that we all can connect with each other from places of strength, because we really know ourselves. And I think, as much as you need your mind, and that's another thing I've learned with Brian and Emily, and I think this one can be attributed to Emily, but she always said it's alchemy over strategy.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that was just such a beautiful piece of wisdom to me, because that really is that integration of heart and mind. And yeah, it just, that's what I see, breath work really helps you tap into that place, like you were saying.
Yeah.
So I guess my question would be for you, if you have somebody that is just, like, oh, this sounds really interesting, and I really want to get to know myself better and know my body and my heart and mind better. What are some good ways to just have someone to get started that are approachable, so they don't feel like, oh, I don't know, and there's too much coming at me?
Absolutely. There's one, each individual comes to that moment of realization that they want support, they want help, they want to make some shifts. I'm very interested in inner will. Like, are you willing to do the work? And I worked with a local substance abuse psychotherapy, psychodynamic therapy group. And I sat with their substance abuse circles, and I gained another layer of like understanding of how to facilitate. And I also sat in supervision with psychologists, watching videos of psychologist patient interaction, and learned a lot of the principles of working with individuals in the psychology realm. And I gained so many powerful nuggets. But one of the most impactful things that I learned from this particular practice, and John Frederickson is the individual who spoke it, but he says that if the will is not on board, you cannot proceed with therapy. And sometimes it might take a full session, 2 full sessions, 3 full sessions to get the will on board. What that means is, I say, hey, are you ready to do some exercises for you? Right? It's a little bit deeper rooted for those who have psychopathologies or some deeper emotional things. But often we say, yes, I'm willing. Yes, I'm totally willing. And it's like, cool, let's go. Instead of saying, cool, let's go, what I learned is to say, are you sure? Are you sure? Now you're challenging their will, the will that they put out. But you don't know if that's a true will or if that's just something that they're saying to appease you as the facilitator. And that happens a lot in therapy. It happens a lot in breathwork. It happens a lot in emotional healing. It's like, are you ready to do this work? It's like, yes, but deep down it's a no. And then they start going and they start doing the work and they start going through the psychological practices. And then now trauma is becoming maybe re-traumatizing, and it's almost like, whoa, you're going too fast. And what you're saying, I'm not even comprehending, because my nervous system is so activated, and my emotional body cannot hold, my physical body cannot hold the emotions that are rising up. I'm over capacity. And then they're like, okay, that was a great 45-minute session. Good job. And you're just like, oh, I wasn't fully in. So will is so important. And it's like, are you willing to do this work? Great. Are you sure? Yeah, I just said I'm sure. I heard you say you're sure, but how do you know you're sure? You say that you're willing to do this work, but are you sure you're willing to do this work? So I invite those who are saying like, hey, I'm ready to make a change. if you're ready to make a change, guess what? There's probably 7 chains attached to your leg that are going to prevent you from actually stepping forward into it. So say you're ready, say, hey, I'm ready. Okay, so what you're ready for is not to do the work. Now you're ready to look around and see what's going to prevent you from doing the work. And that might take facilitation with people. So that's one layer. It's like you may say you're ready, but are you really ready? That's a good practice for self. Secondly is the idea of emotions is so, I think, misunderstood in the world of what they are, and there's a misunderstanding of what emotions are and who feels emotional, and only like women feel emotions and men shouldn't, and there's this like cultural um, mix up of what that is. And so I try to interchange that word emotion with stress. Like, are you feeling stressed? Great. With stress comes emotion, right? This is, you know what emotion is. What are you feeling? Well, I'm not feeling anything. Well, you're not feeling anything. You're probably feeling something. So what are you feeling? Well, I'm feeling an itch on my wrist, but that's not really like a feeling. Well, who's to say that's not really a feeling? Because you said that you're feeling it. Well, that's not like the feeling that I think you're asking about. And I'm like, I'm not asking about anything in particular. I just want to know what you're feeling right now. Well, now I feel hot and flustered. Cool. Great. Thank you for sharing. What else do you feel? I feel angry. Awesome. Beautiful. Now we're learning. Now you're recognizing that you feel what you feel and you don't choose what you feel. And if you try to feel what you expect to feel or what you expect someone else to expect you to feel, you're off. So what I would advise people who are listening and interested and curious is, what are you feeling right now? As simple as, I feel my right leg more in contact with the seat than my left. I feel like my right knee is dropped more than my left, which is creating this like pressure line on my on my hamstring on the right. That's what I feel physically. I feel sweat, perspiration on my face. I'm feeling. So, what are you feeling in your physical body, and acknowledge that as actual feeling? And then take it inward one step and say, okay, what am I feeling energetically? Not emotionally, energetically. I'm feeling excited. I'm feeling tired. I'm feeling fearful. I'm feeling happy. I'm feeling motivated. I'm feeling overwhelmed. All you just named are energies that you're feeling, but really you're naming emotions, because emotions are energies in the body. So if you're connecting with feelings in your body, you're actually connecting with emotions. If you're connecting with the energies of your body, you're connecting with your emotions. It's like there's this beautiful interplay of those where you don't have to feel the thing that you think you need to feel.
But
So
we move so fast in every day, and we've got these cell phones, they're attached to us, so I think we are getting farther and farther away if we are not super intentional in wanting to do this work. Just your iPhone alone will pull you so far away from self and into that world of do and multitask and how much can I get done, that these check-ins that you're talking about, one, they give me hope, because I am loving the more conversations I have like this and seeing that there is a universe of people out there that are really intentional about this work, because it is more and more important and so powerful because of the way our culture is so driven to perform. And I think that takes, as much as I love to accomplish amazing things and we all have goals, I think so many people I talk to will say, when it comes down, especially when you talk to older people and they say, I wouldn't, like, all the things I sacrifice, in the end it comes back to the relationships that we have. And if we don't have a good relationship with ourselves, we can't have healthy relationships with the people that we love. And so the work you do, one, my hat's off to you, because I really think you're tapped into something that is so critical and important in society today. But I really so when you're describing that willingness to do the work, if someone wanted to get started on a breathwork practice on their own, how would you recommend that somebody just to drop in and start to feel the results that it can start to bring for you?
I think there's a lot of avenues now with more teachers. Obviously, whenever I first learned about breath work, you look it up and it was Wim Hof was the only one, holotropic was another. Now that I'm a pulmonaut and true breath nerd, there are so many techniques and teachers and things, but for someone who's not fully submerged in a daily life of watching breathwork videos and learning more about the techniques, it's for me, it's a choose one and stick to it. Just like we talked about methods or many block practicing, pick one that you like. And then once you find one that you like and it has a physical effect on you, it has a spiritual effect on you, it has an effect on you that's powerful enough that you're like, okay, I enjoy this on a daily basis. Practice that on a daily basis and start to integrate that and do that for 8 weeks straight, and then be like, okay, cool, I'm going to find another person, another teacher, another practice, and really get into that one for 4 weeks straight, something like that. Like, find something that really resonates and dive in fully, get as much and extract as much of it as is pertinent. Maybe it's 8 years with one person. Highly doubt it's 8 years. Maybe it's 8 months with someone. Extract what you need to extract, and then right before you feel like you've got like everything you need to get, leave a little early and find another practitioner. So there's so many teachers out there. I do have a whole library catalog of breath practices. So if you want to go to my website, it's trueself.health. So www.trueself.health. I have tons of information. I'm an open book. I'm constantly just playing with my own breath and giving out techniques. And so if you're curious, please feel free to reach out to me directly, jump into my online catalog and try out some of the techniques. And so that'd be a great place to start, given that I'm here now.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And we'll make sure we put all that good stuff in the show notes so people know, where to find you. And being that you're such a student of health, I mean, all of this mind, body, spirit connection. What books or podcasts are you into, or that you would recommend for people?
Yeah. So speaking of science and spirituality, I've been digging through the Tao of Physics. So TAO of Physics, Tao of Physics. It's a physicist named Fritjof Capra from like the 80s, and he talks about subatomic molecules and essentially the dance of particles, subatomic particles, and the basic building blocks of all of reality on the most microscopic subatomic level. It's constant vibration, it's constant movement, it's constant, like, particles literally appear and then disappear and appear and disappear constantly. So there is this cosmic dance that is equally communicated in Eastern philosophy and spirituality, which is the cosmic dance that we were talking about earlier. So it's like, oh, it's not just spirituality. There is this really like rooted physics, metaphysics based reality that contributes to us creating the spirituality. We're not just coming up with spirituality nowhere. There is this like magic realm. So the Tao of Physics, I would suggest listening to it versus reading it. It's dense and it's heavy. Love that book. And then From the Core is a John Wineland men's masculine, feminine embodiment practice. John Wineland's a mentor of mine, a teacher of breath, but really like holding yourself, holding your posture, feeling your energy, building yourself to hold a little bit more energy, cycling your breath through you in a way that you can hold and handle more interaction with the polar opposite force, whether you're a masculine male or a masculine female or a feminine female or a feminine male, and you're connecting with another person, and there's this dance of polarity. But it's like the dance of polarity can't really exist unless you have this self-created core of structure within you that allows for that interaction to take place. That's essentially what that book's about, and it's powerful for men and women. He's a men's embodiment coach, but also a women's embodiment coach. So it's called From the Core, John Wineland. It's fresh off the press. So those are two that are important.
That's, yeah, I was wondering why I hadn't heard of that one, and that sounds right up my alley. So
Oh yeah.
personally, thank you. That's it. That sounds amazing.
Totally. Yes.
Yeah. So I guess just to wrap this up, and I thank you so much. It's been such an awesome conversation. But one question I always like to ask all of my guests is because I'm so passionate about, like I said, teaching people younger than me and imparting wisdom that we've learned along our journeys. But one piece of advice you would give to your younger self.
One piece of advice that I would give to my younger self is fuck up. Just fuck up. Just go for it. Mess up. Don't hold yourself back out of fear of what other people would think. FOMO, fear of missing out. FOPO, fear of pleasing others. And yeah, just really understand that in putting yourself out there in situations where it feels risky, it feels scary, that's where the most learning takes place. And I say that because I know, and I look back at a lot of moments and opportunities where I could have done something different. I could have said something different. I could have shown myself, but I was afraid of really showing who I was. And so I just say, like, hey, you are who you are, be who you are fully, and express that and share that with the world. And if people don't like it, that's okay. That's no indication of who you are and what kind of quality person you are. So that would be my advice. I give that to myself even now. So.
I know. I do think that's one that we continually learn over and over again. So I concur, and it's great advice. So, and then I know you mentioned your website, but any other places that people can interact and find you?
Yeah. So website, trueself.health, and then same tag, Instagram, one word, True Self Health. So at True Self Health. Those are my primary two forms of content and communication and interaction. Also Twitter. Twitter is also True Self Health. I'm a Twitter nerd. So awesome. Those are 3 great points. And then from there, again, reach out to me directly. I'm super intrigued by hearing people's stories and just communicating and having conversations like this. So I'm really grateful to have shared this time with you and been on with you. And I thank you so much for having me.
Oh, absolutely. I'm excited to get this out there, and thanks for the work you do. And yeah, we'll be in touch and can't wait to keep this conversation going. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to What I Meant to Say. If you enjoyed this conversation, you know what to do. Subscribe, rate, review. And for more great content, courses, and lifestyle, go to BeBetterMedia.tv.